Hi there everybody, welcome to this week's edition of The Verdict. We are going to have a look at races that's come from lots of different tracks this week. We'll be at Kempton from last week. We'll also be at Newmarket. I staged a very good card on the Saturday afternoon. We'll be at the Curragh and at Redcar as well. Lots to enjoy. We need to just temper our expectations as far as sectional times are concerned, given the autumnal conditions now with strong headwinds, tailwinds and easier ground. But we'll work our way through the RaceiQ data as we look at all of these 6 races, starting at Kempton Park. We'll go there last week and have a look at the time index scores. And the race I'm going to have a look at is race number 4, won by Knight Raider. Look at the score that he's achieved, 9.99, a really fast time over 6 furlongs, so much faster than would be expected in a race of the standard that he was running in. The average for the day, 7.53, way above that. There he is, stall number 7, and he has got the better of equilateral from 1 and zero carbon from 3. He is 3 out of 3 on the all-weather at this horse. They tried to turn him into a Guineas prospect. That didn't work out. He bombed out in the 2,000 Guineas. But basically, he's a sprinter, and he loves this surface. This is his second run back off wind surgery, and he's now 3 out of 6 in his career to date. Look at the pace that he showed in the early part of the contest. You can tell that he's going quick. These are good sprinters in behind him, and he's spread-eagled them already. William Tell is in second last place, also won this last year. He's flying along out in front, and the data backs that up. It was a very fast first half of the race, and then he gets tired. His second furlong was 10.66. His third was 11.03. That's how fast he went. And his fourth was 11.16. He was flying out there, and then he gets tired. He starts to tread water now in the closing stages after those quick furlongs, but he's able to hang on nonetheless. Equilateral lunging in the closing stages, and unsurprisingly, his finishing speed percentage is under 100 because he's getting tired. He's pretty legless out there, 98.01 ultimately, but he just did them for speed out of the gates. Raw, brazen speed through the first half of the race won him this contest, and he'd be effective back at 5 furlongs, I have no doubt. There's the win time, 1:10.08, 1.92 under the RaceiQ pass, so he's much, much better than would be expected for a horse running at Kempton on this surface over this trip in this class of race. Miles better, and he's got a future, I think, this winter in big sprints on the all-weather. It's a fantastic performance from him, another winner for the Carl Burke team, and he really is a bit of an all-weather specialist. There will be more to come from him. Equilateral's run his usual sort of race. He was actually quicker in the final 2 furlongs than Knight Raider, but Knight Raider was just way too fast in the early part of the race. He was legless late on, but he'd done enough early on to establish a big lead, and he hung on in the closing stages. And there he is coming back in. The wind surgery's obviously helped. Coming back from a mile has definitely helped, and he's a sprinter to follow this winter. Let's turn our attentions to Newmarket on Saturday, and we'll have a look at all of the figures in the knowledge that there was a very strong headwind on the day, and getting a little bit of cover on the rolling mile was quite important. And because of that headwind, the time index scores were quite low, really. We're going to have a look at a couple of races. The big one, which was the Sun Chariot, it's the third race over a mile. And we've got a nice 2-year-old to look at as well in the 5th contest. That time a little bit better than the Tamfana time in the Sun Chariot. Average on the day, 4.56, and the headwind got a lot to do with that. So Tamfana in the Sun Chariot, quite well backed, and pretty quickly into stride, certainly compared to Inspiral. Look at her, really slowly away, and we can have a look at the RaceiQ brake speeds, 0 to 20 miles an hour. Tamfana fully a second quicker to get to 20 miles an hour, 2.34 seconds, and unsurprisingly, Inspiral was the slowest, 3.34. You can see with your eyes that she was slow, but the RaceiQ numbers tell you exactly how slow. And the race was slowly run as well. The first 4 furlongs, as against the RaceiQ Par sectionals, were rated as being slow or very slow. So essentially, Tamfana has got her own way out in front, and she's got something of an easy lead after braking smartly. Nashwa down towards the rails, back off a break, a bit keen in the early part of the race. Inspiral has caught up now and she's a bit keen as well, but Tamfana is in the box seat. How do we know this was really steadily run? We can look at the finishing speed percentage, 105.59. Okay, so this is a Group 1 race where they've gone steady enough, enabling them to finish the race 5.59% quicker than they ran the previous 5 furlongs. So it really was a bit of a crawl and a sprint here. And when it turned into the sprint, Tamfana was in the right place to take full advantage. She fired an 11.34 penultimate furlong, and that just gave her the edge over Inspiral, who did quicken up well herself to get into contention, but having quickened to get to the girth of Tamfana, she then weakened and paid for that effort late on. You can actually mark Inspiral up. You saw how slowly away she was, and you saw how well she quickened up in the closing stages. She quickened just as well as Tamfana through that 7th furlong. The last furlong, she just got a little bit tired and weakened, and Tamfana was drawing away in the closing stages. But without that poor break from Inspiral, she'd have gone pretty close here. Tamfana just getting her own way out in front. The finish, according to the RaceiQ sectionals, was fast. Rated as fast through the 3rd last furlong and very fast against par through the last couple of furlongs, and that's for Inspiral as well. But she began her sprint in the 6th furlong when she was fastest in the race. That took her to Tamfana, and then she weakened in the final furlong, paying for that big effort. It does suggest that Inspiral's engine is very much still intact, but nonetheless she's to be retired. She's won 6 Group 1s in her career. She's been a fantastic filly. She was brilliant at the Breeders' Cup last year, where she fired a sub-11 second furlong when she won there, quickening from the rear of the field. That was her most impressive performance, but she's been a grand servant to the team Gosden, and Tamfana really showing just how good David Menwizier is as a trainer. He's a target trainer. He looks after his horses. He doesn't run them much, but when he does, we need to sit up and take notice. So let's have a look at those par sectionals. So you've got the colour code at the top, very slow, slow, par, fast and very fast. And you can see this race neatly divides into 2. The first 4 furlongs, they were pretty steady. They were rated as slow or very slow. And then suddenly the sprint begins. So if you look at Tamfana, 12.33 in the 4th furlong, suddenly 11.73. She's gone from a slow against par to fast against par with 11.73. And look at Inspiral, 3 very fast furlongs, 11.33, the 6th furlong to get her into contention. Then she's just as good as Tamfana, 11.35. That last furlong, she pays for that big effort and weakens back and couldn't get past Tamfana, who got the run of things and might now go to Ascot and Kipco Champions Day for the QE2. On the same day, we saw the Gosdens introduce a nice 2-year-old colt called Nebras. We saw on the RaceiQ time index scores that it wasn't a particularly flash time, a time index score of 4.23, which wasn't as good as the meeting average. But the way Nebras won was quite impressive. I thought it was very much worth having a look at how he achieved this victory from stall number 3 under Holly Doyle, beating Wild Nature from 7 and Nakib from stall number 2. The first 2 home, Nebras and Wild Nature, were not that fast into stride. You can see Nebras is last there. Wild Nature, white cap, just being tucked in. He's almost second last. Nebras, 7th fastest to 20 miles an hour, 3.04 seconds. Wild Nature, 6th fastest, 2.89 seconds. And Wild Nature had the benefit of previous experience, so no excuse for him, really. Nebras, though, on debut, just a little bit tardy into stride. Now, if there hadn't been a strong headwind on this day, I'd be really marking this performance up big time, because the Rowley Mile suits horses who are ridden forward. They're ridden prominently, often suits front runners, really, particularly in races that are steadily run. And this was steadily run, yet Nebras was able to overcome that and quicken past horses who were quickening in front of him, and he's done so on debut. So if there's no headwind whatsoever, you mark him up big time, giving him a huge sectional upgrade. Because of the headwind, you can just temper your enthusiasm just a tad, because he's got cover from that wind through the race. You can see the second horse has got a bit of cover from it as well. So that might be marginally significant, but nonetheless, I want to be really positive about this horse. Finishing speed percentage in the race, 105.73. Par for a race of this standard over this trip at Newmarket is 99.05. So they've really gone steady and sprinted. It's quite similar to the Sun Chariot. They've gone steady to halfway and then they've sprinted, and the winner's come home 5.73% quicker than he ran the rest of the race. Here he's quickening up, 7 furlong, 11.67. It's not as flash as perhaps you would think, but it's the headwind and the easy ground which causes these sections not to be around the 11-second mark, but he's still much better than all of his rivals. And then a 12.09 final furlong to see off the Godolphin horse Wild Nature in second place. And that's really impressive debut performance, because if you look at the finishing speed percentages in the contest, every single horse was over 100. So what Nebras has done is he's quickened past horses who are not stopping. It's not as if they've gone fast and got tired and stopped in front of him. They're quickening as well. And data tells us they're finishing fast, faster than they've ran the rest of the race, yet he's still able to come past them. Good attitude on his debut, I thought, as well. He just hung to his left a little bit in the closing stages, but he's entitled to roll around. That's a big effort on his debut. He's got a lovely pedigree. He's by Jabawi out of a pivotal mare. That's what gives him the speed that he flashed here. The second horse sort of marooned on the outside of the field. There's an argument that it was perhaps better to be towards that far rail. He's run well, he's placed again, and he'll surely win a race in the near future. Perhaps maybe something like at Kempton or on the all-weather. I think he'll definitely win something. But this winner could be pretty useful. Remember, it's his debut, and he's quickened up in a race that wasn't necessarily run to suit him. He was a bit keen, he was a bit slow out of the stalls as well, but yet he's flown home in the closing stages, and we should be very positive about what he achieved out there on the Rolly Mile. So let's sum it all up with the RaceiQ data. You can see what speed he reached, his top speed of 38.82 miles an hour. So he was fastest in the race, and that came in the 7th furlong where he did 11.67 seconds. And you can see only one other horse, the runner-up, got under 12 seconds. It was 11.93. All those finishing speed percentages telling us how the race was run and just how well Nebras did from the back of the field, having been slowly into stride, 7th fastest to get up to 20 miles an hour. Racing TV trackers at the ready for Nebras. Okay, time to go to the Curragh at the weekend and have a look at a couple of nice 2-year-olds for the Aidan O'Brien team. Who else would it be? Let's have a look at the RaceiQ time indexes. And we're going to look at the first 2 races. Not done very well in terms of the overall scores, have they? Both over 7 furlongs, 2.94 in the opening contest for Expanded. And we'll look at Giselle, who gained a 2.69. Why are the scores so low? Well, there was a headwind, as at Newmarket at the Curragh. And these 2 races were quite steadily run with strong finishes. So therefore, they are under what the average was for the meeting of 4.24, courtesy of the gallop that they went. Let's start with Expanded then in the first contest. Nice horse, half-brother to the very useful Henry Adams. We'll take it from the 7 furlong start and just pick him up there just towards the rear. It's quite slowly away, 11th fastest, 3.07 seconds to get to 20 miles an hour. Very green on his debut, son of Wootton Bassett. I think there's going to be an awful lot more to come from this fella. Indeed, the second horse here, First Wave, he is by Wootton Bassett as well, a sire who's very much going places and one that the Coolmore really like. You can see there he's a little bit keen, just making his way forward. He's upsides First Wave. This was quite steadily run. Finishing speed percentage 105.88, so rather like the race we just looked at Newmarket, was just over 105%. This is similar, where they've gone steady for the first 3 furlongs or so and then gradually picked it up just a bit above par. The par for 7 furlongs at the Curragh is 104.84, so over this trip at the Curragh on this ground they generally finish off quite strongly, normally ridden judiciously to produce a decent finish, and that's exactly what happened here. But for quite a long way he didn't look like winning. You'll see First Wave quickens up really well, and he fires a faster furlong in the race, the penultimate furlong, than the winner. Nonetheless, the winner did 11.59 seconds in the 6th furlong, and it was the 7th furlong, it was the last furlong where he was miles better. And look, it doesn't look like a great time, does it? 12.46. But in the conditions, with the headwind, it was a lot better than his rivals. And look at the surge he picks up now between horses. Now he's getting the hang of things just in time, and I think he was just green, and it took him a while to work out what was required, and when he did, he picked up really well. His finishing speed percentage 105.73, the runner-up 104.89, and all of the principals in behind, they finished off strongly as well in quite a steadily run race. There was a bit of trouble as well. That's because of that early pace. But once he gets the hang of things, once he works out what's required, you've got to be quite impressed with that surge in the final furlong, that 12.47 second furlong that took him to the front and enabled him to finish off better than par, better than you would expect in terms of historical data. So it's a strong finish from him. I think he was clueless in the early part of the race, and he's going to improve. And one thing to note is that he's got a host of Group 1 entries, this fella. He is in the Dewhurst next week. That's surely going to come too quick for him, but he's obviously a horse who's quite highly thought of, and he's made a winning start. It's quite an impressive performance from him, I thought, despite the narrow margin of success. Let's have a look at the data then. This is what he produced in conjunction with all the others. Look at the finishing speed percentages. They're all over 100. They're all quickening up in the closing stages off that steady gallop. He was very slowly into stride, 11th fastest, absolutely clueless early on. He wasn't the fastest horse in the race. I think they belonged to First Wave with 39.26 miles an hour at one point in the contest, 38.8 for Expanded, but he did finish quickly, 11.59 sixth furlong, and then he was fastest in the race through the final furlong, and that's what won him this contest. He'll stay another furlong, you'd have thought, certainly next year, and he's a bright prospect. 4 two-year-olds on the show this week, and the best of them is coming up right now in the shape of Giselle, who won the second race at the Curragh on Saturday afternoon. This was over 7 furlongs, rather like Expanded's race, but it was a slower overall time, but boy was she impressive, causing Wayne Lorden to say that she was only ever doing a half speed. She came out of stall 17, drawn very wide. She beat the Palace Girl from stall number 10, and third was Carolina Jetstream from stall number 7. So she's posted quite wide. She'd learned from her debut when she was slowly away, because she was second fastest up to 20 miles an hour here, 2.53 seconds. The Palace Girl, who ran really well in second place, she was very slowly away, 3.28 seconds to get up to 20 miles an hour. And she was 15th fastest, she finished second, she ran really well. But Giselle, doing that half speed that Wayne Lorden referred to in interview afterwards, doesn't get any cover. It doesn't make any difference. She's running into the headwind, to remind ourselves of that, but she quickens up really well. Now, this was even more steadily run than Expanded's race over the same trip. She was a little handier than Expanded, and she quickens up really well. We've got the finishing speed percentage being higher than Expanded. This gets up to 106, this one, 106.66, so she's 6.66% quicker in the last 2 furlongs than the rest of the race. So we've got another crawl and we've got a sprint, and she's able to do 2 sub-12 second furlongs, unlike Expanded. She quickens up very well indeed. She's cruising to the front now. 5th furlong, 11.79, and then her 6th furlong, she'll go even quicker, 11.46 seconds. Look around her, look all around her. They're all being nudged along. They're all being asked for a big effort. Wayne Lorden's hardly moved on her, and she goes clear readily to the furlong pole. She then does get a little bit tired. Wayne referred to that when he was interviewed. He said that she was entitled to get tired, always running into a headwind. You can see she's just getting a little bit out of fuel in the closing stages, but nonetheless, she did the damage as she quickened up those 2 furlongs that we highlighted, took her clear of the field. There's the time, 1:29.41, Expanded 1:29.09, so it's slower than that, but overall, she looked like a better prospect. She quickened up better than Expanded did. He stayed on with that 12.5 second furlong to win the race. She actually quickened and put the race to bed very quickly, and then just got tired inside the final furlong, rather like the Expanded race. All of the horses in behind a recorded finishing speed percentage above 100. So again, she's quickening away from horses who themselves are picking up and quickening, and that's what you've got to like about her. Let's just have a look at her individual sectionals this time, rather than looking at all of the horses in the race. Let's just look at how steady the race was run. You can see the number in brackets is where she was in the race, so 3rd, 4th, then 2nd, and then she got herself to the front around about the 4 furlong mark. But look at those 2 quick furlongs. She's done 12.67, 12.3. Suddenly, Wayne Lorden asked her to quicken. She does so on the bridle with an 11.79 and an 11.46, and that finished the race off. That killed off all of the opposition. She's slow in the final furlong, 12.49, and she was being closed down. She just got a little bit tired, but that 5th and 6th furlong showed her to have loads of raw ability, and I think she will make up into a Group 1 horse next year. It was a big day of the year for Redcar on Saturday, staging the 2-year-old trophy, which was the most valuable feature event on the card, and it was a very competitive event. We're going to have a look at the time indexes for the meeting. They're not too bad at all. A lot of these races were very strongly run with slow finishes on ground that could be rated definitely as being a soft, but the average on the day, not bad, 6.97, and the 2-year-old trophy itself, just above average at 7.12. Most of those times achieved by going hard in the early part of races, and part of that is due to jockeys wanting to get to the far rail. You can see the tyre tracks there, where cars go down to the start. Jockeys like to use that to their advantage. It happened a lot at this meeting. It's happened all season, and it made a difference. Candy wins, stall 5. Second place, Francisco's Piece from 2, and Northern Ticker third from 3. This is a familiar scenario at Redcar on the straight course, particularly at 5 and 6 furlongs. Jockeys immediately wanting to get across to the stand side, to take advantage of what is a bias. We've got to say it, there is a bias there, and you want to be drawn low. And Candy is immediately in front, but going hard in front. The RaceiQ data says we've got a very strong early pace here, courtesy of Candy, and Northern Ticker will come up and dispute the lead in a moment to Candy's inside with the sheepskin noseband, and they go very hard. 13.45 the first furlong, 10.63 the second, and then 10.97. That 10.63, 42.32 miles an hour early in the race. They were rocking and rolling out there in the early part of it, and look at them, lots of them unable to lie up. And what happens in the closing stages is this just becomes a war of attrition late on, with Candy just able to see off Northern Ticker, with the second horse perhaps catching the eye against the rail. Francisco's Piece running on from just behind the pace into second place, but it's a slow final furlong. 12.99 from the winner, really slow, but still managing to win. So unlike some of the races we've looked at earlier in the show, where we've had steady paces and fast finishes, this is a fast start. They've gone hard early. They're in the green zone as far as the RaceiQ pars are concerned, and then they go into the blue zone. They go slow in the last couple of furlongs. The FSP there, well under 100, 95.92. Wow, you'd expect a race run at par over 6 furlongs here to be about 99.86, so you'd expect it to be run strongly 6 furlongs at Redcar, but this is 95.92. They were legless, they were on fumes out in front because they went so hard in the early part of the race, but they were able to hang on because they had a really good track position close to that far rail. One horse, quickly for your trackers, do keep an eye on Uncle Don. He ran really well. He's trained by Richard Fahey. He ran a great race, went second, narrowly defeated at Ayr last time. Here, he did best of those in double figures. He was stall 13 and he finished 7th. I think he's going to win a race before the end of the season. So Uncle Don is worth keeping an eye on out of the Redcar 2-year-old trophy. Here's the data, and you can see that the winner reached 42.32 miles an hour. But where did he reach it? In the second furlong. And most of those horses got to their top speed early on, the second or the third furlong. And then you go to the sectionals, their fastest furlongs. There they are, all through the second furlong. 10.63, 10.71, 10.66. This was a furiously run William Hill 2-year-old trophy. And those that were ridden promptly against the far rail were those that figured in the finish. So plenty of food for thought on this week's verdict. I think some nice 2-year-olds we saw there. Giselle, I think, is probably going to be the best of them for Aidan O'Brien. I thought Nebraska was good at Newmarket, coming from last to first in a steadily run race. Slightly lukewarm about what Tamfana managed to achieve in the Sun Chariot, just because of the way the race was run, and she had the run of things out in front. But we know she's a very useful filly and probably should have won the 1,000 guineas. So she's probably better than the bare result. We'll see how she gets on at Ascot in the QE2 if that's where David Menrizier wants to go. Some really interesting performances. We just have to be a little bit careful with the ground and the strength of the wind, but nonetheless, plenty of horses to follow this week here on The Verdict. Do have a look at my Verdict Extra column. That'll be on the website on Wednesday. For now, I'll see you next week.